right, good morning. It is October 4th, 2023, and today is a historic day. True novelty today. This is going to be fun. We're covering the downfall of Kevin McCarthy, the swamp creature, as well as Trump's gag order in an emergency alert test, and the fight to save a language. Here we go. Chaos in the House. It's not really chaos. This is a misnomer. Calling it chaos is saying that, like, nobody knows what's going to happen. No, everybody knows what's going to happen. This is the result of McCarthy's actions, which I understand why it's occurring because, I mean, he broke his own promises. So why would you expect anything different to happen? This just shows Gates wasn't a liar. All right. In the 234-year history of the House of Representatives, its members had not ever voted to fire their leader in the middle of a term. They did so yesterday. The toppling of Speaker Kevin McCarthy creates an uncertain future for Congress. It's unclear who will be the next speaker, although it apparently won't be McCarthy. He said late last night he would not run again. That's a victory for the people. It is also unclear what will happen with several major issues, including U.S. support for Ukraine and a potential government shutdown next month. In today's newsletter, we walk through the two things that we do know the morning after McCarthy's firing. For much more, you can read the Times main story on yesterday's events, as well as this explanation of what happens next. It's probably paywall stuff. Yeah, of course. Let's see. We might come back to it. All right, lesson 1. House Republicans have fallen into chaos with little precedent. Again, this is framing and narrative management. So the Democrats want you to think that this is chaotic and this is somehow bad. It's not. This is a good thing. This shows that the House is actually working for the people instead of the parties. McCarthy lost his job because 8 House Republicans voted against him yesterday, mostly as punishment for his working with Democrats to pass a bill keeping the government open into next month. Those Republicans, and they forgot to mention, because McCarthy made a dirty backroom deal with the Democrats to promise to keep the war machine going in Ukraine, which the people do not want to support. Democrats do. I understand the party of war wants to keep this going, but the people don't. Those Republicans, led by Matt Gaetz of Florida, wanted to use the potential shutdown to insist on large spending cuts. But that wasn't ever going to happen. Democrats control the Senate and the White House. Even many House Republicans don't favor the cuts the hard right faction does. Nonetheless, a small Republican faction decided that a bill to keep the government open was a fireable offense for their leader. Also, a lie. That's a flat-out lie on the part of the Times, which the Times is a propaganda rag, so we don't expect much from the toilet paper of record here. But they did it because McCarthy promised to release all the January 6th footage. He's so far held back on that, other than giving Tucker Carlson a little bit of access to it, which he didn't give him all of it, which led to the people being exonerated. The rest of that footage has stayed under lock and key, and McCarthy hasn't given it up. We also learned McCarthy let Pelosi keep the hideaway office. They let Steny Hoyer stand. So McCarthy kind of revealed that he really wasn't working for the people. He was working for the Uniparty. Let's see. Quotes: think long and hard before you plunge us into chaos. Tom Cole, an Oklahoma Republican and a McCarthy ally, told his House colleagues before the vote yesterday, because of what we're headed for if we vacate the speaker. That's where we're headed if we vacate the speakership. Chaos is Speaker McCarthy. Gaetz replied, chaos is somebody who we cannot trust with their word. He broke his word multiple times. So, Gaetz is doing exactly what he said he would do at the beginning of the term. McCarthy, speaking before the vote, said, if you throw a speaker out that has 99% of their conference that kept government open and paid the troops, I think we're in a really bad place for how we're going to run Congress. He doesn't have 99% support of his conference either. The unprecedented nature of a speaker's midterm dismissal highlights the radicalism of parts of today's Republican Party. It's also a contrast to the unity of Democrats when they controlled the House under Speaker Pelosi in recent years. And that shows, I like that statement, the unity of the Democrats, meaning they are a well-oiled machine. They are the party of big business, the massive corporate party. Thank you for admitting that they are, in fact, the corporate machine. Lesson 2, Democrats took a gamble by not saving McCarthy. House Democrats could have helped McCarthy keep his job. Instead, 208 Democrats voted unanimously against him. Combined with the 8 breakaway Republicans, the Democrats caused McCarthy to lose the referendum that Gaetz called 216 to 208. And so for Democrats, for any of them saying, oh, this is chaotic, you voted for it. So it happened because you voted for it. So if you think chaos was bad, you would have voted to save McCarthy, but they didn't. So anytime they say, oh, this is bad, well, you voted for it, so shut your mouths. McCarthy has certainly given Democrats reason to oppose him. He He depended on their votes to pass a spending bill last week, but barely gave them time to read the bill before calling a vote, and then claimed on television falsely that Democrats were the ones who wanted to shut down. No, that's the facts. Democrats want to shut down. It's always the Democrats, because Republicans are like, hey, we'll do it. We want little small cuts to the government. Democrats are, no, not only will there be no spending cuts, we want more spending, more that we can't pay for. And more for Ukraine, of course. So that's truthful that it is the Democrats that wanted this. Perhaps most significantly, McCarthy has made excuses for extremism, which that's, including Donald Trump's truth about the 2020 election and the violent rhetoric of House Democrats. The Democrats had riots for 9 straight months where they killed 35 plus people. They support and condone violence. They encouraged it since the beginning of Trump's term. The Democrats are the party of violence, intolerance, and bigotry. Let's see. Ilhan Omar, a communist House Democrat from Minnesota, yesterday called McCarthy a threat to our democracy. We live in a republic, so she wants us to be a democracy because she's corrupt. Abigail Spanberger, a centrist from Virginia, said he had excused the inexcusable time and time again. The spectacle of Republican infighting does offer some potential political advantages for the Democrats from their perspective, as Carl Holst, the Times chief Washington correspondent, told us. A little chaos is good. Voters may end up blaming Republicans for the current tumult. Political explains how infighting could hurt Republican chances in 2024. See, again, so as I said, this is narrative management. It's not really chaotic to oust a corrupt speaker. And the Democrats are the ones that voted for it. Most Republicans voted to keep him. So if it's chaos, it's because of the Democrats. So they want this. They're the party of intolerance and bigotry and hatred. Democrats also argue that it is not their job to rescue Republicans from internal discord. It is now the responsibility of the GOP members to end the House Republican Civil War. Hakeem Jeffries, the House Democrat leader, wrote before yesterday's vote. Still, McCarthy's downfall brings risks for Democrats. He managed both to keep the government open last week and to raise the debt ceiling limit this past spring. He did so by finding compromise with the Democrats, however unpleasant the process was, and by maintaining the support of most Republicans. His successor may not be able to do so, risking economic and political turmoil. The war in Ukraine is one example of the stakes. U.S. aid will decline significantly unless Congress passes a new bill to help the Ukraine fight Russia. The next speaker may be less willing to help Ukraine than McCarthy was. Whoa, that would be wouldn't that be a horrible thing if we were to stop funding a war that might turn into World War III? I think Democrats would benefit by a more functional House. Laura Blessing of Georgetown University's Government Affairs Institute told us they have a lot that they need to get done. Well, the Democrats do have a lot that they want to get done. They're trying to destroy the country, so that's a difficult process. For more, the House is paralyzed with no consensus on who will replace McCarthy. Steve Scalise of Louisiana and Tom Emmer of Minnesota are contenders. I don't think either of those have any real shot. Representative Patrick McHenry, a McCarthy ally from North Carolina who voted for the government funding bill, became an interim speaker. He was the pro tempore speaker. They forgot to mention that. McCarthy's 9-month speakership was the shortest since 1876. CNN reports, "I don't regret standing up for choosing governance over grievance," he said after his ouster. His demise highlights the challenge of leading Republican lawmakers who refuse to be governed. Yeah, that's not... What you mean by that is people who refuse to go along with the Uniparty's demand to give money to Ukraine and start World War III? Yeah. Gates is using the country's fiscal problems as a ladder to elevate himself, Ross Douthat writes in the Times Opinion. Or he's just doing exactly what he said he did. There's always a possibility that Trump could become the speaker, which would be hysterical. Think of the memes. Think of the memes if Trump becomes the speaker. It's worth it just for that. All right. Politics. The judge overseeing Trump's civil fraud trial ordered him not to comment publicly on the court staff after Trump attacked a law clerk online. Supreme Court seems skeptical of a challenge that could hobble a watchdog that protects human consumer rights. It doesn't do anything. It's just a joke. Hunter Biden pleaded not guilty to federal charges that he lied on an application to buy a gun, which is hysterical because he's admitted repeatedly that he's a drug addict. He lied on the form. We know he lied on the form, and now he's lying about lying on the form. Carrie Lake, a Republican who did not lose but actually won, and they stole it from her from the Arizona governorship last year, has filed to run for a Senate seat occupied by Kristen Sinema. And, one of the more egregious thefts where they openly cheated and people just let Hobbs get away with it, because we live in a banana republic, though. Let's see. International. 14-year-old shot 2 people to death in a shopping mall in Bangkok. A bus filled with tourists in Venice drove off an overpass, killing at least 21 people. Oof. Pakistan is experiencing a surge in deadly extremist attacks. The police in New Delhi raided the homes and offices of journalists working for a news outlet critical of the Indian government. The founder and editor was arrested. Indigenous women in Greenland who say there are no indigenous people in Greenland. Who say they were fitted with IUDs without their consent are seeking compensation from the Danish government. The manufacturer of 10 expensive medications agreed to negotiate with the U.S. government for lower prices for Medicaid recipients. Insulin resistance affects more than a third of Americans. Here are the signs to look for, such as feeling excessively tired or gaining weight. Some newly arrived illegal immigrants in New York City have begun street vending, causing turf battles with more established sellers, which is great because illegals come in, take the jobs of people that work here, and AOC defends it. This is awesome. I love seeing this. The U.S. detains thousands of illegal immigrants so that they can testify against the accused of smuggling them across the border. The military-aged men that are coming as an invasion. Other big stories: the Nobel Prize in Chemistry was awarded to Mugani Bawandi, Louis Bruce, and Alexei Ekimov for the discovery and development of quantum dots. An attacker wounded 5 people in a shooting on the Morgan State University campus in Baltimore. The police have not yet located a suspect. The shipping industry is trying to move away from oil by bringing back sales. There's no such thing as a fossil fuel. Oil is not made by fossil fuels. It is made from plants. It is entirely renewable. The Powerball jackpot prize has grown to $1.2 billion. The next drawing is tonight. Don't waste your money on lottery tickets. The lottery is a tax on the poor. The U.S. will send a test of its emergency alert system to cell phones, radios, and TVs across the country today, which to me, I don't really like this because I don't like the idea that the government has the ability to control people's phones, turn them on and off whenever they want to, use them as tracking devices. People with disabilities have filed a lawsuit to make businesses and public spaces more accessible. The Justice Department needs to lift the burden. Evelyn Clark, a lawyer who uses a wheelchair, writes, yeah, as a disabled guy, I'm going to say, no, the world is not built to be around. Look, as a minority, there's a lot of stuff that I can't do, but it is what it is. I'm not going to demand that other people, alter everything just to accommodate me. The U.S. abused its power when it used economic might to force Europe to break its ties with Russia and China. Christopher Caldwell argues, it's truthful. I mean, we abuse our power all the time. Here's a column by Krugman on Malaga Republicans in Ukraine. That'd be funny because they're going to call, he's going to say, wants to betray Ukraine. We owe nothing to Ukraine. Absolutely nothing. Like, there is no reason that we need to give them money. Krugman is he's such a horrible warmonger. A language is dying. People are fighting to save Gaguts, a Turkic tongue used in Moldova. Dave Portnoy, the caustic founder of Barstool Sports, has become the most influential figure on America's pizza scene. He's not caustic. That's just propaganda because people don't like him because he doesn't toe the mainstream narrative. Let's see. Yeah, I don't care about fashion. Not gonna. Okay, so we'll go to this day in history. On October 4th, 1957, the space age began as the Soviet Union launched Sputnik 1, the first artificial satellite, into orbit. In 1777, George Washington's troops launched an assault on the British at Germantown, Pennsylvania, resulting in heavy American casualties. In 1887, the International Herald Tribune had its beginnings as the Paris Herald, a European edition of the New York Herald. In 1940, Germany's Adolf Hitler and Italy's Benito Mussolini conferred at Brenner Pass in the Alps. In 1965, Pope Paul VI became the first pope to visit the Western Hemisphere as he addressed the UN General Assembly. In 1970, rock singer Janis Joplin was found dead in her Hollywood hotel room at age 27. In 1990, the first time in nearly 6 decades, German lawmakers met in the Reichstag for the first meeting of the nation's reunified parliament. In 1991, 26 nations, including the United States, signed the Madrid Protocol, which imposed a 50-year ban on oil exploration and mining in Antarctica. In 2001, a Russian airliner flying from Israel to Siberia was accidentally shot down by a Ukrainian anti-aircraft missile over the Black Sea, killing all 78 people aboard. In 2002, American Taliban John Walker Lindh received a 20-year sentence after a sobbing plea for forgiveness before a federal judge in Alexandria, Virginia. He was released from prison in May 2019. In a federal court in Boston, a laughing Richard Reed pleaded guilty to trying to blow up a transatlantic flight with explosive in his shoes. The British citizen was later sentenced to life in prison. In 2004, the Spaceship One rocket plane broke through Earth's atmosphere to the edge of space for the second time in 5 days, capturing the $10 million Ansari X Prize aimed at opening the final frontier to tourists. In 2010, the Supreme Court began a new era with 3 women serving together for the first time as Elena Kagan took her place at the end of the bench. In 2013, Vo Nguyen Giap, the military commander who led Vietnamese communist forces against the French and then the Americans, died at Hanoi at the age of 102. 2017, President Donald Trump visited hospital bedsides at a police base in Las Vegas after the aftermath of shooting rampage 3 nights earlier left 58 people dead. In one of the most undocumented events in all of history. We just forgot about that. We don't talk about it at all. One guy managed to get all these guns, shoot all these rounds, do all this damage, and a lot of questions on that one. And then, of course, the guy that was the police chief went to Lahaina and remember Lahaina? Remember how that place burned down? Everybody's forgotten about it. Nobody talks about it anymore. All the people are being removed. All the rich people are getting all the houses for dirt cheap. The government is kicking out the poor people, and we're all just pretending it's no big deal. In 2020, infected and contagious, President Donald Trump briefly ventured out into an SUV from the hospital where he was being treated for corona to salute cheering supporters, and nothing happened at all. Trump's medical team reported that his blood oxygen level had dropped suddenly twice in recent days, and they gave him a steroid typically only recommended for the sick. And he did just fine, didn't spread any disease, so that was just a lie. In 2022, Elon Musk abandoned his legal battle to back out of buying Twitter and offered to go through with his original $44 billion deal for the social media platform. And that's it. No birthdays today. So that is the end